The children that you're speaking to range in ages. So do you have to switch up that explanation depending on who you're talking to?
You don't come to a kid and start to give him like the entire juice at once. So you try to
Yeah.
break it down to something he can relate to. In our last program, we used sweets to give them a full, relatable way of seeing Bitcoin and SAT. We brought like a candy and
Okay.
we dissected it into
Wow.
multiple parts, right? We brought a little piece and showed them this is one SAT, this is one SAT, this is one SAT.
What is this one now?
Then we brought the full candy and say this is one Bitcoin. So all this candy
Right.
here, when you gather them together and you put them all together, it gives you one Bitcoin. Then they will say, wow, so that is what Bitcoin is in a way. I'm like,
Wow.
yeah.
Another thing that I've noticed, like in the Bitcoin journey, is if businesses aren't accepting Bitcoin, then that medium of exchange is irrelevant. And that's another thing that's different about America versus Africa as a continent. If you talk to most American Bitcoiners, they don't really want to use their Bitcoin. But if you talk to most African Bitcoiners, they use it all the time. That's why I feel like Africa's leading the way, because you use it, you spend it, you exchange with it. And I think people forget that's the purpose of Bitcoin. It's peer to peer. I like what my Nigerian girls, when they said the ground is hot. The ground is hot everywhere, but I feel people haven't really truly suffered yet enough to understand why Bitcoin is so important, in my opinion. What's the funniest thing that a child or a teenager has asked you about money?
Well, the funniest thing a child has asked me of money is, can I buy one Bitcoin with 1,000 naira? So that's the money question that is so funny. And 1,000 naira is less than $1.
Yes.
Less than $1. So when the question was asked, I was like, yo, I need to teach you guys about Satoshi.
Let me tell you exactly what you'll get if you subscribe to Raising Satoshi. Each video you'll hear from real parents, real educators, not influencers, not experts, just everyday people trying to figure out how to explain Bitcoin to their kids. And the best part of all, we keep it simple. No complicated charts, no confusing language, just real conversations that you can actually understand and use. You'll even walk away with things that you can try at home. How to explain Bitcoin to your kids, how to talk about savings. You'll also hear the real moments, the funny questions, the confusion, sometimes my daughter interrupting the interview, and of course, the wins. So if you ever thought, am I too late? How do I start? What if I'm still learning myself? Then this is for you. Subscribe to Raising Satoshi, and each video will give you simple, real ways to start building a better financial future for your family. One conversation at a time, one lesson at a time, one sat at a time. All right, welcome. This is Raising Satoshi, and today we have the pleasure of speaking with Destiny. Welcome, Destiny.
Good day, guys. I'm very excited to be here. I want to say a big thank you to Tima for the invitation. Let's go.
Yeah, let's go. So, Destiny, just let the audience know just a little bit about you and who you are and what you do.
My name is Destiny Smart, and I'm based in Ikorodu, Lagos, Nigeria. I work closely with families, artisans, which are small businesses and skilled businesses, and children through Bitcoin Ikorodu, where we are building a local Bitcoin circular economy. While I don't have children on my own yet, but I plan to have children on my own. I plan to have a lot of kids on my own. But I spend a lot of time teaching and learning alongside kids in our community, helping them understand money, value, savings, and responsibility through Bitcoin in many ways. So the community has become my own very extended family. And yeah, that's
Nice.
more of what fit into this. And also, we are running a broader project called Bitcoin African Story, which aim to showcase the proof of work of African builders and projects pushing in the work. Thank you so much.
Wow. So, tell me about your Bitcoin journey. Like, how did you, like we always say, Bitcoin found you. So, how did Bitcoin find you?
So Bitcoin really found me at that point in time whereby I really needed it. But what first drew me into Bitcoin was the problem it was trying to solve, especially here in Nigeria. When we talk about
Mm-hmm.
inflation, unstable money, limited opportunities. That's one exact one that made it really, really stick to me. That the system wasn't built for regular people, like the fiat system wasn't built for people like us. So at
Right.
first, Bitcoin felt very, very technical. When I was diving into the rabbit hole, I was hearing what like private keys, wallets,
Mhm,
self-custody, all
mhm,
those stuff were very confusing at first,
mhm.
you know. But what helped me was hands-on learning. When I started using Bitcoin in real life, when I started using Bitcoin to make small transactions, when I started teaching people about Bitcoin, when I even started, building my own project in the Bitcoin space, and when I actually saw the work in real life. So when you can explain Bitcoin simply to a child, you really understand it yourself. So that's what pushed me
Right.
into the
Right.
education side for kids. Yeah.
Yeah, because I think with inflation, I speak to this group on Sundays. They're called Nigerian Women's Bitcoin Group. And they told me a saying, like a Nigerian saying, they say like the ground is hot. So like the ground is so hot, like basically like inflation is so high, the money is so not corrupt, but just I mean money everywhere is worthless, fiat, but that the pain is so much higher. And I think that's like one of the I don't want to say differences, but I think that's why like in my opinion, I always tell people that in my opinion, I feel like Africa as a whole has more use case with Bitcoin, in my opinion, because the pain of the inflation in the country, depending on where you are, like depending on what your currency is, like if you're on the west side of Africa or you're on the east side of Africa, the problems are the same. And here in America, like since inflation is terrible as well and people are suffering as well, but they're not suffering like Americans are kind of spoiled in a sense. You know what I mean? So they know that inflation is terrible. They know that all these things are bad and that they're suffering, but the ground is hot here, but I don't feel like people understand how much hotter it is in other areas. Um so with the kids, and you teaching it's I find that when you're explaining Bitcoin and you're explaining Bitcoin to people who are younger than you're explaining it in simpler, easy ways, which is I think like easy for you to remember certain things because just like you, blockchain was so difficult for me to understand. Like I was like, what is this? Right? Smart contracts and all this stuff. Like I had no idea what that stuff was. But then once you start talking about it and you explaining it, it becomes a lot not simpler, but I think it does.
100%. 100%.
Yeah. So for you, you mentioned smart contracts and you mentioned just like explaining Bitcoin. Can you just tell me like what was like that one thing that was like really hard for you to understand with Bitcoin that as you're speaking to kids more about it became more simpler and easier for you?
Wow, this is very so the one so yeah, the one oh god, I don't know. Okay. So the one thing was that when I was trying to explain to the kids about um on-chain and lightning for the first time ever,
Oh my
right?
gosh.
So now, so just imagine knowing about Bitcoin now, and the next day you are like, hey, you first of all, you know, call your younger brother, explaining to him about what Bitcoin is. Then you stumble upon the on-chain and the lightning future. It was very, very difficult for me to, explain to him
Hmm.
as young as he is, or as young as he was then. But
Hmm.
after speaking with him, you know, and after breaking it down to the littlest formats that I can imagine, it became very clear to me that on-chain is just like a traffic jammed with is like an highway filled with a lot of traffic. Then lightning is like a route under the highway that is more free and more fast for any vehicle to flow through. So that explanation alone, made it more clearer for him and also like made me understand the little analogy of what on-chain and lightning is. Then until I did my own research and I found out the full meaning of what it was, and it was very, very inspiring to take note and document because yeah, it made sense for me that as of then.
Yeah. I think that that probably was the same for me because like Lightning, like when layer 2 and stuff came out, I was like, so it's a protocol on top of another protocol? I already like had like questions about the protocol, like the original protocol. So then when you say like it's on top of that, I was just like, what is this? You know? But I mean, without, now that I know and, I'm learning more about layer 2 and just how that works, it's become a lot easier. Like once you start saying it and honestly, you start using it, you know?
Yeah, very true. Like the first time I showed my younger one a real life Lightning transaction, it was like, wow. Then
Right.
I switched onto on-chain. Like I did like an on-chain transaction. It was like this is taking a lot of time to be confirmed compared to the Lightning.
Yes.
So that was the scene that also like made it more convincing for him and also for me also because as long as you teach,
Right.
you need to practicalize what you teach to the kids. So yeah.
Yeah. All right. So I think like you're basically saying that like once you started explaining it, and I like your explanation of how you with the smart contracts, is that kind of like what you use to explain it to the kids? Because the children that you're speaking to range in ages, so they can be as young as 6 years old and as old as 15 years old. So do you have to switch up that explanation depending on who you're talking to? Or do you even get into lightning if you're talking to a 6-year old?
No, one thing to take note of is you don't come to a kid and start to give him like the entire juice at once. So you try
Yeah.
to break it down to something he can relate to.
Yes.
Especially for an African child, you need to break it down to something he can see, something he can feel, and
Mm-hmm.
something he knows. For example, when
Yeah.
we're talking about Bitcoin, I
Mm-hmm.
can say Bitcoin is, for example, like a bank, of which I know Bitcoin is not a
Yeah.
bank, right?
Right.
Of which I know Bitcoin is greater than a bank. But since he understands what bank is, then bring the analogy of a bank to make it more simpler for like a lower like aged kid. I would be like Bitcoin is like a piggy bank, or we call it colo. We call it colo here in Nigeria, right? Bitcoin is like a
Okay.
piggy bank. So that way you can relate
Mm-hmm.
to what Bitcoin is. So when I'm coming to the kids, I don't come to them straight up with the terminologies. I come to them straight up with what they can relate with. And once they
Yeah.
understand the analogy or once they understand the example, I can then switch it up to, this is what it is, in the real world. It is called lightning. It is
Mm-hmm.
called on-chain. It is called transaction
Mm-hmm.
fee. You understand? So
Right.
I tend to do it gradually before, giving them the full juice.
Yeah. It's similar here too, because like when I'm speaking to certain people, I always say that you have to meet them where they're at. So like if I'm talking to someone who understands cryptography, who is already working in Bitcoin or blockchain, I don't really have to explain a lot. But if they're new to it, I do the same thing you do. Because like when I'm talking about like the private keys, I always tell people like imagine if it was like your bank account number, would you ever give that away? And they're like, no. And I'm like, I would never tell anyone a seed phrase. I would never tell anyone private keys. We would never disclose that. So it's the same like from a banking perspective, it's personal things and from a privacy perspective that you would never disclose. So once I say that, it clicks for them. It sounds like similar for you.
Yeah, and one I like in terms of defining it to the kids is when I'm trying to explain what Satoshi is.
Yes.
I won't
Yeah.
say Bitcoin is equals to 100 million Satoshis yet. You understand? We will try to break down what Satoshi means, or what Satoshi is all about in their own little understanding. For example, I can say this is 1,000 naira and this is 10 naira. So 10 naira multiplied to like, okay, is it 1,000 or 100? It gives you 1,000 naira. So I'll break it down. This 1,000 naira is a full Bitcoin. Then this 10 naira is a small Bitcoin.
Right.
Another example. In our last program, we used sweets to give them a full, relatable way of seeing Bitcoin and SAT. We brought
Oh,
like a candy. and
Okay.
we dissected it into
Wow.
multiple parts, right? And we brought
Yeah,
each
yeah,
one.
yeah.
We brought a little piece and showed them this is one sat, this is one sat, this is one sat.
Ah,
Then we brought the full candy and say this is one Bitcoin. So all this candy
right.
here, when you gather them together and you like put them
Mhm.
all together, it gives you one Bitcoin. So in a sense,
Ah, that is
your
so
yeah, in a sense, your shattered candy are your sat, while your full candy is your Bitcoin. Then they would say, "Wow, so that is what Bitcoin is in a way." I'm like,
wow, yeah,
"Yeah." So yeah, that
yeah.
is
And it probably also pushed them that they want to get one full Bitcoin because they're like, hey, I don't want just this small piece of candy. I want the whole
oh,
candy
oh,
bar.
yeah, 100,
Wow, that's
100%.
oh my God, I've never heard anyone do that. That's incredible. Tell me a little bit more about the um oh man, you told me earlier before we started recording how to pronounce it. Uh I'm gonna try to say it. Ikorodu. Say it again.
Ikorodu.
Ikorodu. Okay.
Yeah.
Bitcoin Ikorodu. So tell me a little bit about that program and the sense of like, how do you have it set up? Like, is it workshops? Do you have other, like the other people? Because you guys are, as you told me, it's a we, not a I. So, your group of people that are, everybody who's working together for this cause, like, just tell me more about how that goes.
So yeah, for Bitcoin Ikorodu, it's a project and it is a Bitcoin circular economy project in Lagos, Nigeria, but it is
Hmm.
located in Ikorodu. So Ikorodu is
Ikorodu.
one of the fastest growing city in Lagos, right? But
Okay.
it is more of like the rural side of Lagos, right? Although they are like urban vibes in some part of Ikorodu,
Hmm.
but it is mostly focused on businesses and I don't mean large scale businesses. It's mostly situated with small scale businesses like everyday market seller, barber
Yeah.
shop, local schools and stuff like that. So
Hmm.
what we do in Bitcoin Ikorodu is that we try as much as possible to grow Bitcoin adoption in our community, right? We are not focusing on everywhere. We're focusing on just a small community for start. And when we've gotten the blueprint, we can spread it across the whole Ikorodu. Because one thing we
Right.
learned while building our project was that we should learn how to start small. We should not focus everywhere. So the
Yeah.
project focuses on Bitcoin adoption and merchant onboarding and Bitcoin education. And what better way to bring the community closer to Bitcoin than to
Right.
educate kids about Bitcoin? Because we believe that once a kid understands what Bitcoin is, it can empower his life, as he's growing up.
Yes.
And the knowledge keeps on growing with him, he will become a better person and make a better change in the community.
Right.
So we're focusing on kids education, merchant education, merchant onboarding, and also community awareness and community growth on Bitcoin. So yeah,
Hmm.
ever since we've launched, we've onboarded over 3 merchants on BTC map, but we've also had requests from 5 other merchants to 10
Wow.
merchants, saying they want to be onboarded also. The growth is organic and the movement is steady. So I am just the project manager of the project. We have the
Okay.
community lead. Shout out to Omega, is the community lead of the project, and as well as other volunteers. So yeah, our aim and our
Nice.
mission is to put Ikorodu in the map and to create a sustainable circular economy in Ikorodu.
Yeah, similar in America, I would say it's much easier. I don't want to say much easier. I don't want to make it seem like it's easier, but I feel like smaller businesses, it's easier for them to understand why they need Bitcoin, if that makes sense. A lot of times, what I've noticed here is like there's a community that basically the goal of the community is to, similar to kind of what you guys are doing, but it's to orange pill more businesses to accept Bitcoin. Another thing that I've noticed like in the Bitcoin journey is if businesses aren't accepting Bitcoin, then that medium of exchange is irrelevant. And that's another thing that's different about America versus Africa. as a continent. If you talk to most American Bitcoiners, they don't really want to use their Bitcoin. But if you talk to most African Bitcoiners, they use it all the time. That's why I feel like Africa's leading the way, because you use it, you spend it, you exchange with it. And I think people forget that's the purpose of Bitcoin. It's peer to peer. There's a wonderful community here called the Bitcoin District Initiative. And what they do is they go around and they talk to food trucks, like merchants, smaller businesses, and they get them to accept Bitcoin. And you find that the number of people that they've orange pilled is much larger in scale than bigger businesses who are now accepting Bitcoin. So with the kids and stuff, when you're talking to them about Bitcoin, do you find that it's easier for them to understand the pain of inflation just because they're witnessing what their parents and what their families are going through?
Yeah. So as I said, making it relatable for them. And every day, kids feel inflation here in Nigeria. Even the mother, even the father. Because whenever
Yeah,
you go to the market to get something, you find out that the thing is going crazy in
right.
price. The price is going higher. If you do like afford to get your kids an iPhone 16 every month,
Mhm.
the next month you go to the market now, you find out the price has gone high. That is inflation. So the kids, one way or the other, will be affected. Some kids don't even have, like, the parent doesn't even pay for their school fees anymore because of inflation.
Mhm.
So when we educate kids about Bitcoin, we are giving them all these relatable examples. Because sometimes
Right.
kids don't even know what inflation is. They just know that things are
Yeah.
getting very cost. So when we come and
Mhm.
teach them about Bitcoin, we teach them about example of inflation, what inflation is, how
Mhm.
can they start saving smart. We try to create this
Mhm.
financial literacy for them so they would eventually talk to their parent about it. You feel me? So
Right.
yeah, it boils down to how well do we relate inflation to the kids.
Mhm.
So we try our best to make it more relatable as possible so they can understand what inflation is and how it is affecting them. And one thing we know is that some schools doesn't teach their kids about inflation.
Yeah.
So whenever we come to any school, we teach kids about inflation, they'll be like, wow, you understand? So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's so very, very
It's it's it's
crazy.
so important because what's interesting about Ikorodu is that you're doing more work for the kids than they're unfortunately learning in schools, right? Because the schools aren't going to teach them, like you said, about inflation. The schools will teach them about money from a perspective of how they can go out into the world and basically do the same system that their parents did. I'm not saying that that's wrong, but it's not working, right? Like that's why so many people are suffering. That's why so many people are living paycheck to paycheck, as we say. And when I hear that people are actually teaching, and the whole idea of me having this raising Satoshi is that unfortunately in schools, whether you're on the west or the east of the world, not many schools are teaching what the real use case of money. And the real use case of money is is trash,
Yeah,
right? Like it's not a system that's designed to help the common person. Is it a system designed to keep you spinning, 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 where you're always trying to keep up with what's kind of going on with prices, right? Prices fluctuating and stuff.
yeah,
Do you think that what you're doing, do you think it's possible maybe that it's something that you can integrate into local schools in your community?
yeah. Possibly, we've gotten requests from a school to come train their teachers about
Right.
Bitcoin. So I
Mm.
feel the more we can do good stuff in terms of educating the
Mm-hmm.
kids, the on-ground works and everything. I feel there would be a need for that later on in the future, right?
Yes.
But for now, we've received a request from a school to come train their teachers on Bitcoin and also to come teach them how to integrate Bitcoin to their system. I believe it's possible.
Yeah. I think it's nice when you can work directly with the schools, because if you can set up a program where it's like an after school program or even a part of the curriculum, a part of their actual coursework, it's so monumental. And I don't think that people understand the impact of Bitcoin in the sense of the world. It's so major to us, but like the rest of the world isn't using it yet. The rest of the world, like over 90% of people in the world aren't utilizing Bitcoin. And it's honestly because they don't know, the ignorance, uneducated, and no one's actually told them. Could you just tell me a little bit more, like in terms of the workshops and like everybody who's coming to teach the children, is that done like throughout, is it like they meet on certain days? How often do you get to see them? Like how does that work?
Okay, so in terms of the programs, we do the programs not sequential, like we don't have like a specific date for the program, but we are now looking at making it a more, frequent, initiative in, as part of
Okay.
our project. We are looking at making it a quarterly program for schools. Then hopefully when we begin like giving our time to schools to train the teachers, we can have it as a weekly program. But for now, we plan to have it more of like a quarterly program and have a general meetup, which will be like a monthly kind of initiative. So we have monthly meetups as part of the initiative also.
Okay. There's a lot of good momentum coming out of Nigeria, specifically, in my opinion, with Bitcoin and just with, like you said, with the circular economy. What has been the biggest challenges, though, that you faced with trying to create a circular economy in Ikodu?
Thank you so much, Rista, for that. Okay, so what has been the challenge so far? It is more of like the approach. For example, when we started the circular economy, like the community was very skeptical about. Most people were
Yeah,
not really interested for what we were doing. It's all falls down to how we approached them for the second time and the third time and the fourth time and the fifth
yeah,
time and the sixth time
yeah.
and the seventh time.
Yes,
Then till when they finally,
yes.
agreed after all the trials and errors, all the time we approached, which they ignored. So yeah, it all boils down to the approach. So the community were not very open to it at
Yeah,
first, but now we've got people accepting Bitcoin for their service. We've got a barber shop, we've got a printer shop, and I
nice.
printed this poster, Bitcoin accepted your poster, right? Can you
Oh,
see this?
nice.
So this poster, funny enough, we printed it using Bitcoin. We paid the merchant with Bitcoin, and the merchant accepted Bitcoin for it. So
Right,
having to see how far we've come in terms of merchant acceptance and community awareness, that has been a very, very big milestone for us. Yeah, it's Bitcoin.
right, right. Yeah, because you find that sometimes you have to talk to people multiple times. It takes more than just one time to really convince people about Bitcoin. And I
Yeah,
think also too, like no matter where you are, the most common thing I hear about it is that it's a scam. It's just something people just don't believe that it's real. And I think it's because you got to think for so long, like you're in your 20s, even as long as you've been living, hard money has been what you've known. When Bitcoin came about, well, I would say no, because you didn't, I don't know when you heard about Bitcoin, but when Bitcoin was created, you're talking about over 16 years ago, but it still wasn't in your radar yet. So you still were used
yeah,
to the Naira. You were still used to paper currency.
yeah.
So imagine people who are older than you, much older than you, they're really just used to paper currency. So when you say that something's digital and it's on a public domain, they're like, "What are you talking about?" You know?
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I really agree with that. Yeah, in Nigeria, people have been scammed so many times.
Yes.
More of like a Ponzi scheme initiative, and that was mainly tagged Bitcoin, Bitcoin investment,
Hmm.
Bitcoin this, Bitcoin that, Bitcoin trading, Bitcoin wallet. People target Bitcoin. And these are not really
Yes.
Nigerians coming Nigeria. These are people from outside the country coming in, bringing their product and scamming Nigerians with those products. So
Yes.
people have passed through a lot in terms of digital technologies, especially when it comes with Bitcoin. For example, there was this recent scam experience that came in Nigeria, and
Yeah.
that was very, very
Right.
drastic. A friend of mine lost about $100 to $200. So people have been
Mhm.
scammed. trying to talk to them
Yeah.
about Bitcoin, you need to at least, make sure you have that trust factor with them. They should trust you as a
Right.
person. You understand? So there are a
Right.
lot of layers that comes into this circular
Mm-hmm.
economy work. It's not just
Mm-hmm.
talking to them, speaking to them. You need to be present on the ground. They need to know you.
Yeah.
They need to see you as a mentor, you feel me? So it's a
Yes.
responsibility on its own. That's what we are doing here at Bitcoin Ikorodu.
Yeah. From the trust factor, a thing that is a little bit, I don't want to say difficult, but a little bit challenging when you're talking to kids, especially the younger ones. Like I try to tell, when I'm talking to adults about Bitcoin, you can't just trust a certain email. You can't trust every wallet that you use. You can't trust, it's like, don't trust, verify slogan. But for kids, they're so impressionable and they are so trustworthy that trying to explain to them how you got to keep your Bitcoin safe and everyone shouldn't know about your Satoshis and things like that. Are there any neat ways that you talk about that to the younger kids versus like how you talk about it to like your teenagers in the program?
Whenever we have our program, I try as much as possible to explain the fact of not trusting anyone, not trusting any promises,
Mm-hmm.
not trusting any promise that sounds too good to be true. Like the kids can be approached and they'll be like, and people will be like, yo, do you know what this is? Bitcoin, give me your money, I'll put stuff like that. Anything can happen. So I try as much as possible to educate them on financial security, not really money
Yeah.
security, like Bitcoin security. How can they edge some certain scam approach or stuff like that? As much as we are trying to educate the kids, trust also is something we also teach the kids about. They should not trust anything that sounds too good to be true. And even if they want to
Yeah.
trust
Yeah.
anything, they should trust from the source. So we, like this,
Mm-hmm.
we might not be well
Mm-hmm.
trusted, but at least give us the benefit of a doubt because if we wanted to do anything funny, we could have done it before we even started the program. But we are only open for you to learn about Bitcoin. So any news you have or anybody that approach you that wants to or that approach your mommy or your daddy about Bitcoin
Mm-hmm.
and you know it's against what we teach, feel free to reach out to us so we can help you to put the right call across. For example, the airport merchant we onboarded recently, he told me that someone reached out to his dad, telling his dad to bring a certain amount of money so that they can
Okay.
invest the money and give him
Wow.
4x of the money in less than 30 days. And
Wow.
he called it Bitcoin investment. I was like, don't
Dag.
don't do it, bro. Don't do it. You guys are struggling already. You don't need to
Oh my
lose. You don't
God.
you don't need to lose another money because the man was very eager to do it. If not for his son that
Mm-hmm.
told me about it, then the guy could have done it and lost his money because the promise was so
Right.
fake. You understand? So these are what we also like, bring to the kids and to the merchant whenever we talk to them about Bitcoin.
Right. That's crazy because a lot of times when certain exchanges or certain wallets are hacked, which happen every day, and
Yeah.
I don't think people realize that, you
Yeah.
just may not hear about it for 60 days because they have a certain time period where they have to disclose that your information has been stolen or hacked or whatever.
Okay.
But what's so interesting is like similar to that story about the Forex Bitcoin. Okay. Um, you look at some of these emails that they send you, because I get scam emails all the time. And sometimes I read them just to see what they're saying. It's like you got to really ask yourself because they'll send you an email and say like, "Oh, click this link to recover your 2 Bitcoin."
Okay.
And it's like, "Huh? Click this link to recover your 2 Bitcoin." One, if you had lost your Bitcoin, it's done. You've lost it. Now, don't get me wrong. I know that there are like people who have gotten their Bitcoin stolen. And then I've seen like on Twitter, I know you probably call it X, where people have gotten help from the community and they've retrieved some of their funds back, right? But usually, like if you click the link or you've done something, your Bitcoin's pretty much gone, right?
Sure.
So I try to really focus on security when I'm talking about Bitcoin. just because it's so tempting. It's so tempting to click that link because you're like, oh, 2 Bitcoin? Okay, I want that, right?
Okay.
Like who wouldn't want that? I don't care who you are, right? But you have to like really think, ask yourself, where did this 2 Bitcoin come from? If you had 2 Bitcoin, it should be in cold storage, right? There shouldn't be anything that you have to click to retrieve it. You got to ask yourself these questions. I'm going to tell you a story, a funny story. So a lot of times here in America, and I think probably all parts of the world, a lot of times scammers target older people, like elderly, senior citizens, like my grandmother's age, just older people.
Okay.
And what they were doing is someone called my mom and they said, hey, we have a warrant out for your arrest. And she was like, what? And they said, yeah, you failed to show up in court because here in America, they have what's called jury duty. So
Okay.
jury duties is like you get selected randomly and you have to go listen to somebody's court case, right? If they're in trouble.
Okay.
And they said, yeah, you didn't show. And she was like, what are you talking about? I never got a notice. And they were like, no, we sent it to you. You didn't show it. Now you have to, like there's a warrant out for your arrest. And if you don't pay this fine, we could lock you up and we don't want to do that. So by this time we knew it was a scam, right? But luckily I was, we're together and she was with me. I could tell her like these people are scamming you. So then what they told her was she needed to send 9,000 USD. And they said USD. Nobody in America refers to our dollars as USD. Like
Hmm.
unless we're trying to convert something,
Yeah.
right? So you have to put USD to Naira, USD to the, whatever currency, what country you are, but you would never say that. No American would ever say that.
Yeah.
I would say, Destiny, you owe me $9,000. I would never
Yeah.
say you owe me 9,000 USD. That sealed the deal that it was a scam. So
Yeah.
we kept like joking with them in the sense of like, oh, really? So how do I give you this money? And, they were like, oh, you have to meet us here and, all these different lies. But just imagine what they're doing on an everyday basis to scam people, what they can do with Bitcoin. It's the same stuff, and
Yeah.
it's unfortunate because a lot of people have lost their Bitcoin that way. I like the fact that you say don't, like for the kids, like, we're kind of verified sources, but don't trust us either. Like trust yourself. You know what I mean? I like that just because they're going to have to make decisions about their Bitcoin and you're not going to be around to guide them. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah. I agree. Yeah.
Yeah. In terms of the values, so like you guys focus a lot on explaining you kind of explain what money is. You explain, the use case of Bitcoin. You guys are really doing the groundwork in creating this circular economy, which is phenomenal, I think. Tell me in terms of the values, like what values are you trying to pass down to these children um, in terms of what Bitcoin can do from them from a not so much a money perspective, but just like their values as a whole?
Okay. Thank you so much for the question. So first of all,
Hmm.
we teach Bitcoin like a story, not like
Yes.
finance, right? So we start with simple
Yeah.
ideas, which are earning, saving, and spending, right? So we focus
Hmm.
on the saving part for the kids because they need to understand, why they should save. Because when you're talking about kids, you're talking about people that just wants to spend, spend, spend. Not everyone is really,
Yeah.
really grounded in saving. So we bring to that perspective that Bitcoin is so very valuable. Like Bitcoin has, outperformed Naira and other, money, right? So saving in Bitcoin is
Hmm.
actually one of the best things you can do. And funny enough, kids are actually telling their parent about it. And we were called one day from the school that we should come and attend their parent and teachers meeting to explain what Bitcoin is to the parents, but we
Hmm.
were not available to come there to explain what Bitcoin is to the parents because the parents were like, our kids were telling us about Bitcoin, the school was like, we can invite them to come and discuss with you about what it is themselves. So yeah, that is very, very amazing to
Right.
see. Right? We use game, we use
That
role play,
is.
we even use drawings, we use real life example, for instance. Kids can
Okay.
answer by
Yeah.
answering questions. Like in our last program, kids answered, they earn satoshis by answering questions, by answering the quizzes. And when they earn the SAT,
Mm,
they actually spent the SAT with our merchant, which we onboarded as of then. So yeah,
mm-hmm.
we are helping them to understand,
Wow.
earning, saving, and spending. So the value we're bringing to them is for them to understand that, yo,
Yeah.
Bitcoin is real, right?
Mm,
And we are bringing a
yes.
mindset shift to them, which is very powerful. So they won't just be
Yeah.
spending kind of kids, but also a group of kids that also focus on their future and understand the value of what Bitcoin can bring to them if they can really
Right.
save
Right.
it, not really spend it. Yeah.
Yeah. That's amazing because fundamentals that you're teaching, I think the values that they're taking away is so far more than like I don't focus on price of Bitcoin. A lot of people do, but I don't anymore just because I don't care about the price. I care more so about the innovation. And it's like when you're teaching children, these are I mean, we all are forever learners, as adults, as teenagers, as kids. But it's something about learning about something when you're younger, it really sticks with you. It's going to be interesting as these kids become your age. They're going to remember you guys forever. It's going to be really life changing because of these values that they're learning from Bitcoin Ikorodu. Have you had any experience or situations where the families of these children also want to come in and learn, or like they like, hey, can you teach us, or can we learn more about it?
There's this real life example, like
Mhm.
the merchant we onboarded, right? Although she was a little bit skeptical about it at first and also a bit skeptical
Mhm.
about it to an extent, right? But when the kids came
Yeah.
through the program and they learned about Bitcoin, they went to the understanding, they were like, Mom, you need to be serious in accepting this Bitcoin. You understand? So that alone, made the merchant to really look into Bitcoin and, accept Bitcoin for what it
Right.
is worth. So yeah,
Mhm.
there's a lot of scenarios and instances. As I also told you earlier,
Yeah.
kids were discussing with their parent about Bitcoin, and school had to call us because of the parents that were like disturbing the schools about what Bitcoin is. Then the school was like, "Yo, you guys should come up here and talk to the parent about
Mhm.
Bitcoin." We are having a PTA meeting. That's a
Nice.
Parent Teachers Association meeting, and we were
Right.
not really available then to come to speak with them. But they also gave us opportunity to come next when next they are hosting their second edition of the PTA meeting this year. So
Nice. Nice. I know you mentioned that you haven't had kids yet, but what you're doing now, and I love the fact that you want to have a large family. Um, what you're doing now is really prepping you as a for to be a great parent. And I just wanted to let you know that, like, your future children are going to be so far ahead of the curve in the sense of understanding the power of critical thinking. Because, like, with Bitcoin, I think you have to be a critical thinker in order to really truly embrace it. And there's a young woman that I've interviewed. Her name is Today, and she has a space called Ask a Bitcoiner 21 Questions. And she told me during our interview, she said, someone told her that Bitcoin does find you, but like Bitcoiners were already Bitcoiners, right? You already knew that something was wrong with the system, and you already knew that the way that it was going wasn't working. So you were already a Bitcoiner before you became a true Bitcoiner, right?
yeah, yeah,
So now that you're teaching and you're the program manager for this program, you're overseeing, and that's a lot of responsibility from the sense because that's what I used to do when I was working. It's a lot of ins and outs, a lot of managing people. It's a lot of like ebbs and flows of just how processes and different things work. But it's just like in terms of your children, it's so exciting because when they come, you're gonna you're gonna have a baby. You're gonna be talking to the baby like, "Hey, this is what Bitcoin is."
very true, very true. Funny enough, I'm even creating a Bitcoin curriculum for kids. We've gotten the Bitcoin slide for kids. We've also got like a kind of teacher's guide for the book for the slide also. So I feel when that time
Nice.
comes, I will surely be prepared.
You will be very prepared. I mean, some things, you learn as you become a parent, but in terms of teaching Bitcoin in that aspect, you're more than prepared. I do just some rapid fire questions, just some fun questions about Bitcoin and the program, your children. Tell me now, like in terms of Bitcoin Ikorodu, where do you see it going? Like, what is your vision for the program?
Well, I see it going far without the actual team. Everything
Mm-hmm.
happening on its own, everything being well sustained on its own. The merchant very curious about it, and the merchant also like inviting other
Right.
people to join the community, and people being interested
Mm-hmm.
organically. It's more of like a fever that will just affect everyone once. So I see it going that way because this is Bitcoin, and Bitcoin is very infectious.
Yes. Very infectious. I mean, it's so infectious that it takes over your life, right? For me, that's what it did. It just took over so many aspects of my life. And I just love the fact that most Bitcoiners that you speak to have a similar feeling because it affects you in so many ways. And I think no matter where you come from or what age, everybody's feeling the same now
Yeah.
in the sense of suffering from inflation in some type of way, suffering from the money system in some type of way, whether you're suffering poorly or you're only suffering a little bit. Most people are still suffering from everyday people
Yeah.
because, the billionaires only make up a small percentage of the world. So most people are everyday people
Yeah.
understand that pain of their money not working for them. And especially just with what they've done with the Naira. I mean, it's like, it's kind of crazy when you think about some of the things that they've done, especially not being able to access, banks shutting down. And that's the thing, like here in America, people understand that banks close, but people don't understand not being able to get your money out of the bank because the bank is done, right?
Yeah.
Like it's happened. I forgot what a couple of banks, but those people got their money. But it
Okay.
hasn't happened like what you guys have been through, just with like a bank can just say, no, we're not giving you anything. You know what I mean? And the
Yeah.
government doesn't help you. So yeah, that's where I like what my Nigerian girls when they said the ground is hot. The ground is hot everywhere, but I feel people haven't really truly suffered yet enough to understand why Bitcoin is so important, in my opinion.
Yeah, that is why we need to replicate Bitcoin projects. As there is Nigeria Women Bitcoin, there should also be like 50,000 projects also that
Yes.
gain inspiration from that. So I feel like the more project that we have that is well aligned with the vision and the goal of Bitcoin, the more faster we can
Right.
reach everyone at once. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. All right, let's do some rapid fire questions. So the questions are going to be about the children, the kids, the teenagers in the program. Since you haven't had any kids yet. So, are you ready?
Yeah, I'm ready.
All right. So, first question. Again, speaking from you can, however you want to answer, it depends on whatever you're going to use, the young kids, the middle kids, or the teenagers, whatever. So, what's the funniest thing that a child or a teenager has asked you about money?
What is the funniest thing a child has asked me of money? Well, the funniest thing a child has asked me of money is can I buy one Bitcoin with 1,000 naira? So that's the money question that is so funny. Can I buy one Bitcoin with 1,000 naira? And 1,000 naira is less than $1.
Yes.
Less than $1. So when the question was asked, I was like, yo, I need to teach you guys about Satoshi. And then I had to like come up with this sweet and the candy and all the explanation that
Yeah,
revolved
yeah.
around the candy. So yeah, that was one of the funniest questions I've received so far.
That's pretty funny. Oh my God. But it's honest. They don't know. They don't, they're learning. All right. Do you think from your, like, depending on the age again, do you think that they would choose sats or snacks? So basically, would they choose to get some sats, or would they choose to get food?
Okay, I'm a real life example kind of person, so I like to give you my real life experience.
Yeah, yeah,
So,
yeah.
so there's this experience I had with teaching a kid in our
Okay.
program, and that program was where we had to say, okay, if you answer the question, we would give you sats. Can you
Oh,
believe
okay,
that
okay,
because of the fact that this particular guy is of 15 years of age, he didn't
okay.
answer any question. He started crying. The guy started crying
Oh,
massively because of the fact that he didn't answer any question and he didn't win any sat. Although he went home with
wow.
snacks. So the snacks was not really his goal. His goal was sat. So when it comes to that, I feel
Right,
like
right.
for the kids that really understand what we're saying, they surely focus on sats, right? Than
Yeah,
snacks.
yeah,
You understand? So yeah.
right.
Well, for younger kids, let me say like kids of 6, 7, those kids
Yeah,
probably would
yeah,
definitely choose snack.
definitely.
Yeah,
Definitely. They're
I'm being honest with you.
they're they're definitely choosing snacks. Cause honestly, like right now, cause it's morning time here, I would choose of course I would choose sats, but I'm so hungry right now that I would need a snack. Like
Oh, maybe
it
maybe
depends on
because
what your pain is, right? Like
very true,
if you
very
haven't
true.
ate and you're hungry, I don't know. It just depends. So I can understand both sometimes. Like, hey, I haven't ate in days. Do I want to eat or I want to get sats? Because what you could do is you could get those sats and then go buy something to eat at one of the vendors you guys have
Yeah, yeah,
orange peel. So you could do that. That is an option.
yeah. We do something like that also, but as of then, we've not gotten like up to the amount of vendor we have currently. So that was
Right.
why.
Yeah.
But yeah, I feel you 100%.
Okay, so next question. The next
Okay.
question is what would be one thing, and again, we're going to do it for the different age groups because I think the younger kids are going to do something different than the older kids. So we'll say for the older and younger kids, give answers for both. That's the easiest way we can do this.
Okay.
What would be one thing that they would want to hodl for 10 years?
Hmm. So for the older kids, that's kids from 9 till those kids would focus more on sets.
Okay. Yep. Yeah, that's what I think.
They will surely focus on sets, mainly because of the fact that there's a need for the sats. And talk more of
Yes.
Bitcoin, is the potential of saving Bitcoin long term. They can use it to pay their school fees, use it to solve some
Yeah.
problems. So yes,
Right.
there's a need for that. But when it comes to younger kids, uh-huh, they will surely choose snacks, but the snacks is not durable enough to last for 10 years. So that might influence
Right.
their choice. You understand?
Yeah. Yes.
So yeah.
That's good. Um, Destiny, as we're closing out, I always like to ask at the end, if you could send a message to the children in this program, what is it something that you would want them to know? Like, say, for instance, they would watch this video in 5 years, 10 years, they could watch it once I air it. What is a message you want to tell them or something that you would want them to know about what you guys are doing and how you feel about Bitcoin?
Okay, I would want to push it to the parents' side, right? Am I free to do that?
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Okay. So for parent listening, I would say one simple thing you can do today is for you to start a
Mhm.
conversation, right? Start a
Yes.
conversation. Talk to your kids about money. Don't wait for your kids' school to bring a conversation up. You have that leverage
Mhm.
now, right? Talk to your kids about money.
Mhm.
Talk to your child about money and where money comes from
Yes.
and how money is
Mm.
being earned and why savings matters. This is very, very important because
Yes.
when you're planning long term, you should also plan long term in the life of your kids. So teach them all this.
Mhm.
Also educate them this simple thing that Bitcoin is a great tool. When you're talking to your kids, make sure you insert Bitcoin into all this money talk.
Mhm.
So that is how you can easily, you know, bring that conversation of Bitcoin
Yeah.
up. in what you
Yes.
guys are discussing. So you can also find
Yeah.
our work in terms of the parents. You can find our work through Bitcoin Ikorodu. We are on Twitter. Hopefully, in the next 5 years, 10 years, Twitter will still be active. But also, we are on Nostar also. So if you can't find us on Twitter, go to Nostar and search for Bitcoin Ikorodu, where we would be sharing the stories of the kids, family, and merchants as we are building a local Bitcoin circular economy together. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Wow, that was really good. You've kind of blown me away with just the simplicity of what you're doing. And it's very hard to teach children. That's not an
Very
easy task, right? Their minds are a lot of different places. They're distracted. They're looking at this or looking at that. They have all these other outside influences. So what you guys are doing is very honorable. It's changing, the world in the sense of teaching these children. And I just think that I love how simple you make it and you explain it. And that's kind of like what we're about, Jump Out Girls, is explaining things in a simple way. And I just really appreciate of how you use the candy and just the different examples of smart contracts. I never even thought of that. So I'm going to use those things and use that when I'm teaching my daughter about Bitcoin, because that's such a great way. And also too, with the candy thing, I think also you can help explain how like blockchain works, how the blocks work. I was just thinking of different things when you said that.
yeah.
Um, Destiny, I really truly enjoyed this conversation. Thank you for being so patient with the flexibility. Oh, I can't even talk.
Oh,
Flexibility of
yeah.
my troubleshooting issues earlier. But that just kind of speaks to who you are and this Bitcoin Ikorodu program. You have to be very patient when you're dealing with children, so I appreciate your patience. Do you mind letting everyone know where they can find you, where you guys are located, how they can access, maybe provide, they want to give you some sats to help the kids. Can you let us know that?
Oh, very awesome. You can find me on Twitter. That's X.
Okay.
So sorry. Sometimes I just try to embrace my boomer version of me. So you can find me on X,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Destiny Smart
Okay.
underscore, Destiny Smart underscore,
Hmm.
and you can find our project Bitcoin Ikorodu also on Twitter. That's Bitcoin Ikorodu,
Okay.
and likewise on
Okay.
Nostar. That is also Bitcoin Ikorodu. And if you want to
Oh,
support what
nice.
we are awesome. So if you want to support what we're building in both of our
Hmm.
profile on Nostar and on Twitter for Bitcoin Ikorodu,
Okay.
we have a crowdfunding link, on the bio, right? So you can go through the link
Okay.
and support us, if you're led. So yeah, that would be very awesome for us to keep
Nice.
on the good works. So yeah, thank you so much, Tima. And I also want to say, please
Thank
make sure you like, subscribe, follow, you know, just support
Yes.
this amazing show because it is very, very awesome, and I'm very, very excited to be here. And I hope for more
Yes.
African builders and more projects to also come here to share their story. Also,
Yes.
yeah, thank you
Yes.
so much for the
Yes. Me
platform.
too.
I really,
Thank you.
I really
Thank you.
appreciate.
Yeah, me
Let me
too.
tell
All
you
right,
exactly
Destiny.
what you'll
We out.
get when you subscribe to Raising Satoshi. Real parents, real educators, just everyday people figuring things out. Raising Satoshi, building a better future.